Welcome to Resource PNG. This week we speak to Farshard Tami from the Papua New Guinea Food Security Cluster on his thoughts about how our farmers can be able to recover from the devastating effects of the recent drought brought on by El Nino. Farshad is an expert in food security and is in the country as part of a team working to assist our people recover from the drought in a bid to strengthen food security. Now we're privileged to have with us Mr. Farshard Tami, the Cluster Coordinator for Food Security and Agriculture. Thank you for joining us on Resource PNG. Mr. Tami.
Thank you. Thank you for hosting me for this show, and I'm quite humbled that you asked me to come here and present a little bit about our thoughts regarding food security in PNG.
Now, as you know, PNG recently suffered from a drought caused by El Nino, and as a result, a lot of people did not have enough food in the gardens, which affected their health. You, as an expert in food security, do you think we've seen the country, come back from this drought especially during November and December when it was at its peak?
Sure. Lots of households had suffered a lot. But of course, you have to look at it in a very broader picture. When we talk about food security in general, we talk about 4 pillars of food security. Food security has availability, access, utilization, and also stability. So when it comes to availability, yes, some of these garden harvest was not available for that time. And I would say stability was also impacted because the drought had made that certain, let's say, cacao, sweet potato, has been affected.
Yes.
And then they did another planting season, and the frost came in some of the highlands.
Yes.
And then that crop also got damaged. You have also other, like pest was impacting after the drought, something called nitrogen flush, which came a lot of nitrogen, making the tubers not become the regular tubers people want for consumption purposes. So all of these have impacted the stability of the food. And when you talk about stability, that means the resilience of the rural communities have been affected by that. Of course, they are still surviving. Of course, they are eating maybe a bit less, maybe less nutritious food as usual. They are maybe going to get harvest faster than usual, eating a bit raw. We have noticed lots of practices that are not typical. At the same time, there is no baseline for food security in Papua New Guinea, so we can compare. We can't compare the current situation if it's normal and how much is above normal or below normal. But the resilience of the community has been affected, of course. Seeds that have been placed for harvest, for planting, has been used for food. So these are a lot of pressures and shocks on some of the rural communities in PNG. I would not say all. Yes.
Now, you did mention food security. For Papua New Guinea itself, what are the areas that you think we need to focus on in terms of food security for our people?
First of all, Papua New Guinea has a policy that the Department of Agriculture and Livestock, in collaboration with the UN agencies, such as the Food and Agriculture Organization of the UN, they have come up with a policy for food security. And this policy has still to be endorsed and approved by the ministry, but it has been prepared in November 2015. So it's on the final stages. And this will be the first step towards a more action-oriented food security activities in the country. And this is at the long-term vision. You need policies in place, strategies and action plans. But at the short term, I think we need to put a lot of focus into making sure there is enough seeds to be multiplied and planting material to be multiplied, so that in case there is another shock, whether it is floods, landslides, drought, frost, that the nation as a whole has the capacity to utilize those planting material and seeds and open pollinated seeds that can produce more seeds and for many generations to come. So that is an important short-term look, and the long-term is the policy making.
All right. Now, how can we ensure that everyone has access to food here in Papua New Guinea? What are the key points apart from infrastructure that you see that PNG needs to work on?
Well, as I mentioned, the 4 pillars of food security, access is the second one. And when we talk about access, it's not just the physical access in the market or in the garden, but also it's an economical access and social access. And all of these, I believe that the rural communities, they do have very good garden farming systems where they can plant their own food. Access to planting material is something I could highlight.
Okay.
So the nation has not expected a drought, for example. There's no strategy at the national level to foresee a drought, where when it comes, there's enough planting material to be given to the farmers. Because people have been surviving for decades and centuries doing their own farming system. They are resilient, they are quite strong. There has been measures to help them after the drought, especially from the government side and also from agencies and organizations in the field. But as a whole, it could be that another shock might be a bit difficult to provide that planting material. But still, the accessibility is not the only one that I would highlight. I would also talk about the type of plants that should be available.
What would be the ideal type of plants that we could be looking at?
According to a researcher, Mr. Mike Burke, he had highlighted 4 main carbohydrate plants that should be more or less available at the country national level. They are the sweet potatoes and the Irish potatoes. You call them English potatoes, Irish potatoes.
Yes.
And then corn, maize as well is called, and pumpkin.
Okay.
But if you talk about the third pillar of food security, which is utilization, I would also recommend that at the farmers level, that they should also try to diversify. And the sources of protein, such as pulses, has been historically like beans. You have been planting beans at the garden level. This should be also encouraged, as well as if you have chicken, use of eggs is quite nutritious.
Stay tuned for more of Resource PNG after the break. Don't go away. Welcome back to Resource PNG. We'll continue our conversation with Farshard Tami of the Food Security Cluster. Now, rising food costs can have major impact on vulnerable households, pushing those least able to cope further into poverty and hunger. On the other hand, higher agricultural prices can also raise farmers' incomes and rural wages, improve rural economies, and stimulate investment for longer-term economic growth. How can we strike the right balance between these two?
Well, the cash crops that are used for stronger economy purposes are a bit different from what the rural communities use for their own utilization. And I would like to differentiate between the two. In case there's another shock, a natural disaster-related shock, it could mean that, again, access to planting material might not be available, and if they are, they might be a bit more pricey than usual. So then the farmer, he or she should have a more resilient mechanisms put into place, that they would save a bit of seeds and a bit of planting material for the next harvest. If it's not available, then that's where the agencies and the government have a big role in supporting the farmers. When it comes to cash crops, yes, indeed. For example, the coffee has been a good harvest this year.
Yes.
And this would really support the economy at the national level. The prices has also gone down. So sometimes it goes up, sometimes it goes down. We cannot predict that at this stage. And then the prices would affect, it trickle down effect on the farmers as well, in terms of having access to money that would purchase food at the same time. Sometimes the drought might help a certain crop, as coffee in our case, but could also affect the cacao, which is more staple food.
Yes.
And that's important to put into perspective for the next, hopefully, shocks. Yes.
Now, what do we need to do to ensure that El Nino doesn't leave us as devastated as it has in the last couple of months?
Well, devastated is a very strong word. I think I would say weaken the resilience of the rural community. I think that would be more put into real perspective. The best is to focus on the long-term strategies, policies that are made for food security, to have a national strategy for multiplication of planting material ready. Like in case this happens again, the process would be much faster to provide corn, cacao, sweet potatoes, and pumpkin. Right? If these are set in a strategy available at the national level by different actors, government and non-government, they will be ready in case there's another El Nino. Then they can immediately disperse those to be available for the farmers. And it could be La Nina coming, and that could cause floods, for example, and that will have a similar effect.
So what would be your advice to the farmers now, given the prediction of La Nina coming up?
It's important to be in touch with local organizations that are supportive. Either they are faith-based organizations or international organizations, to definitely try to be in contact with the government agencies at the LLG level or district level, provincial if possible, to have access to the different multiplication stations in the country, and also try to have access to different trainings that take place, trainings on how to adapt to drought conditions. There are funding happening for these things, there are activities happening and will be ongoing, and this is not necessarily related to the emergency, but there are general trainings happening at the national level. And these farmers can access those and learn from others who have been trained on how to better plant their season, take care of the plants, make sure they can adapt to the drought if it happens again, or to the floods. Well, the floods, they have to find different techniques, of course, because the floods can take away all their saved planting material and the chicken or pigs or whatever they have in their farm. So it's a different approach than the drought. And I'm sure there's organizations also giving some tips and helping out the farmers on how to adapt to that as well.
Mr. Farshad, you've been here for quite a short space of time, but in your professional experience, how do you see the level of commitment from the PNG government, given what has happened in the last 12 months, and probably provide us with a short-term view of what you expect to happen with the program that you're working with? Sure.
I'm working very closely with the Department of Agriculture and Livestock, and the level of commitment is actually very good with them. I'm embedded within the office of the Department of Agriculture and Livestock. I'm in good connections with all the all the managers of this department, and the cooperation has been very good and very helpful. I believe there's lots of dedicated people wanting to help PNG in that respect. And this policy document I mentioned earlier, the National Policy for Food Security, is one of the key documents that has been produced by the government of PNG. And if endorsed and taking a bit further, that's the good step to go further. At the provincial level, of course, you need to have a stronger cooperation between the agencies and the faith-based organizations, whether they're international or national organizations, to work closer with the government. And this is very important because if they work alone, these agencies, it's not enough. It's important to bring in the government staff, and the capacity of both organizations, government and non-government, will become stronger. And this is the key. At the provincial and district level, it's a key that they all should work together very closely.
On that note, Mr. Farshard Tami, thank you so much for joining us on Resource PNG.
Thank you.
You're watching Resource PNG. After the break, industry updates on Resource News. Welcome back. Time now to take a look at what's been making headlines in Resource News.
The Ley branch of the Coffee Industry Corporation deals with coffee exports out of the Ley ports. The central bank says coffee exports have been good and could help the current lack of foreign currency. Coffee Industry Corporation Senior Export Officer Marie Kiliawi says the numbers show that coffee exports have declined slightly this year. Coffee contributes consistently to foreign currency coming into the country and the local rural families' daily lives.
And the overall for the quarter for last year was over 111,000 bags. For this year we did only 109,000 bags.
The cash flow coming from coffee is nowhere near to that of the extractive industries. But the central bank has highlighted coffee that brings in vital foreign currency through exports.
Now we're hearing also already that and seeing already that coffee is good, is reacting to that, very good exports. More exporters are selling direct to overseas markets. And of course, cocoa and copra in Eastern Bougainville, East New Britain and Bougainville are very much increasing. So this is very good. It's a positive story.
The coffee industry has suffered greatly this year. A sharp drop in prices because of poor quality brought about by the adverse effects of the El Nino and damages to the Highlands Highway that delayed freight to Ley.
Defects or rubbish that we see in coffee were white and old beans. So it's really because of long storage, and those were the kind of things that affect, the quality. And that was one of the major things that we see.
Coffee may not be exporting billions of dollars, but during times like this, when world prices of oil, gas and minerals have slumped, coffee does become significant. Coffee as a cash crop alone contributing to the entire Papua New Guinean agricultural sector that doesn't generate billions of dollars in revenue. But given the support it deserves over time, it will reach its full potential. And someday the agricultural sector will be able to mitigate losses acquired from the slump in world commodity prices affecting oil, mineral and gases.
The only nickel mine in the country has been closed for nearly 7 weeks. Operations at the mine ceased, including the withdrawal of both national and foreign workers. All this happened after a high-pressure pipe burst, killing a foreign employee and injuring 3 other national staff. The shutdown of the mine affected surrounding communities, business and other stakeholders in the area.
Shutdown has also affected the small local business people who relied on the mine for their very existence. Bulk of them have stopped operation, like the vegetable supplier, the PNG operator, the village trade store.
The Usinobundi MP questioned the mining minister on how soon the mine will restart operations and why it has taken too long.
When will the mine reopen, as it is really affecting the daily lives of my people and the company MCC?
Minister responsible Byron Chen said though the mine is significant to the country and people of Madang, normal processes will take place for an investigation into the incident.
It has taken 7 weeks because of the independent inspector assessing the incident area.
Chen told Parliament an independent assessor is leading the investigation and will present the report next week.
Possible opening trains 1 and 2 of the mine based on the outcome of that investigation. The third train, which has caused this accident, will be still shut down.
The Ramu nickel mine is the single largest nickel mine in the country.
And that brings us to the end of this episode of Resource PNG. If you would like to get in touch with us, email us on the address now showing on your screen. For all the latest updates on developments within the resource sector in the country, check out our Facebook page. To view this program online, log on to the EMTV website where you will find a link to the Resource PNG page. Until the next time, pleasant viewing. Bye for now.